Welcome to Pressure Points. Our topic is Nvidia gets the green light to start to sell H20 chips to China again. And as of this recording, we're in the pre-market. The stock is up about 5%. My sense is that the stock will probably close up 5 to 7% today. Before we get into kind of the longer term, the 1-2 year outlook, I want to take a few steps back and look at the context of today's announcement. Is that 3 months ago, when the curbs came in, the company outlined on their earnings call that the impact of the inability to sell the H20 would cost them about 15% of revenue. Now, they sell more than 15% of their revenue to Greater China. A lot of that goes through third parties that like in Singapore, for example, that ultimately fund compute in China. And that's estimated to be about 10% of their business. So think about the China opportunity is about 25% of Nvidia's business. 15% of that went away when the curbs came in for the H20. And so here we are today, is that the stock up 5% in the pre-market. I'm talking about it being up 5 to 7%. And they had a 15% headwind that's been released right now. So why isn't the stock up more on this news? And there are two reasons for that. Number one is when they initially made the announcement, the company indicated that they were optimistic that this would sort itself out. And if you look at the 40 analysts that cover Nvidia, by my estimation, 8 of those had essentially factored in this headwind was going to go away basically in the month of July. And so part of the street estimates already reflected this announcement today. So that's one factor to it. The second is that this is good news for Nvidia. But what we've learned over the last 6 months is that any good news that's tariff, that's trade related, sometimes is followed by bad news. And this is not an indication that the H20s are going to be available for sale for the next couple of years, for example. And so I think investors are kind of processing that piece too and not wanting to give them full credit. There is a third and smaller piece to this, which is 3 months ago, the Nvidia business was 15% of revenue. Since then, Huawei has been maybe embraced a little bit more. Not that they have a good competitive alternative. They have some competitive alternatives, but not as good as the H20. But as maybe some of these customers have explored other options, maybe they end up sticking with those options. And so that 15% just kind of rushing back to Nvidia may not be as likely. So it's a combination of those factors. The second piece I want to kind of break down into is why now, like what's going on behind the scenes. And over the past few months, I've talked with officials who worked with the Trump administration in trade on during his first tenure, and they currently advise the administration. And my sense is, and through conversations there, is that the piece of these rare minerals are important. Obviously, we've heard about these magnets that are used, that China has, that are used in defense in the U.S., and I think that when it comes to these trade negotiations, is that the availability of these H20s was probably a part of the negotiation as the U.S. and China came to some sort of a truce a few weeks ago. And so my sense is that Nvidia is essentially part of this chess match, and the H20 becomes a part of that. And because this has that chess match factor to it, is I think that there's a chance that this could get pulled away at some future event. So that's a little bit about the timing and kind of the sustainability. We can't take this to the bank that this H20 is going to be available for sale, for example, for the next 1 to 2 years. We'll just enjoy the moment. We'll take the sales as it goes and hope for the best that it is going to continue to be available. I want to take a bigger step back and look at, well, what is really the essence of what is going on, and what can you really take away from this announcement is that AI is really important. Like, this is as important as it gets, not only for the hyperscalers, but for industries, individual companies, and also nations. And what we are seeing is that China, whether it's the need for H20s for their own purposes, whether it's for defense or governmental purposes, or getting H20s to their companies to continue to build out, like, this is important. And the question about, like, how transformative will AI be, I think underlying it is what is going on in terms of demand, and are those people that are buying these chips, are they competent? Do they actually have a view in terms of where the world is going? And I want to put some contrast to what happened during the dot-com bubble, is that that was largely fueled by advertising spending that I think was a fear of missing out. And I don't sense that well, there's a part of it, a fear of missing out with what's going on with AI. I think the substance of it, as evidenced by this H20 announcement, is that these sovereign groups, companies, hyperscalers are all sensing that this is really important that's going on. And there is this urgency and speed. This also lines up with what Meta's doing with their super intelligence lab, what we have seen with how companies like Ford talk about the impact to white collar workers. All this kind of plays into these continued data points that suggest that it will be more transformative than the overall hype. And if I was going to put all of it together, my sense is we're actually earlier in the build out today than what I thought 6 months ago. I talked about 6 months ago, maybe we're in the third inning, we're 30% of the way through it. Now we're kind of, my sense is we're probably 20% of the way through that. And what that means is for companies like Nvidia, you can take it or leave it what happens with the H20 over the next 12 or 24 months. But what's more important is their chips are really important, and the demand, the need for these build out, I think is going to be greater for longer. On behalf of Pressure Points, I'm Gene. Bye for now.